Hi, everyone. Here is my reading journal for the week. The three important ideas or concepts. There's a lot of talk this week about voluntary poverty and a lot about taking poverty vows made you closer to God or that sort of thing. And we read about that in the history as well as the accounts of Francis of Assisi. There was also this idea that there was this one church, the Catholic Church, and even if you're a Christian and you deviated from that church, that you were a heretic. And I also found later in the reading that they did not consider Muslims heretics, which was interesting to me that they were just kind of left alone to do their own thing. Let's see. And there was a lot of talk about the offshoots of Catholicism, one of them being the Cathars, which are rooted in Eastern Europe, who took a little bit of Christianity and then it seemed like a lot of Buddhism and kind of meshed that together into a religion. A connection that I made in the reading was there's a passage about how they could have slaves and they tried to bring them into the faith and they would baptize them, but they wanted to make sure that they would not be free citizens if they were baptized. And we've been talking a lot about this in my intro to ministry class, only in the perspective of American slavery and how there was a big push to Christianize the American slaves, but they wanted to ensure the slaveholders that they would not be free if they were baptized. They would just have the faith, which it's all horrible, but that's what happened. An experience or emotion. I love the history in the Church 100 Objects book, but the very first chapter that we read this week was of the rose window at Notre Dame. And when I opened the book, I was immediately kind of like taken aback because that very window, that kind of pattern and those colors and everything was the window at my church when I was a child. So it brought back some memories. Obviously, it's smaller and the whole thing, but I loved learning about the rose window and the saints that it pictured and just all the things that really brought me home for that little time. And then my quote is from Irvin on page 435. It says, one of the decrees passed by the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215 made it mandatory that every Christian was to take communion at least once a year, suggesting that many were not participating with this frequency. I literally stopped reading and yelled at my Catholic husband. It was like, listen to this. And I told him, and we were both kind of in shock because, in today's world, the thing is they have to take communion every week, at least once a week, like some people every day. And so to think about them not even taking it once a year was like, whoa, that was news. The two questions that I had on page 414 of the Urban text, it talks about how if someone in the church was found guilty of a heretical, I'm not saying that right, heretical, there we go, act, that they would turn them over to the secular authorities. And it did say that the most harsh treatment was burning at the stake, but I'm curious what sorts of offenses those were and then what the punishments were. And I find it crazy that the church was turning over people to the secular police to punish for perhaps religious crimes or not doing right. It seems like a sin, but yet we're punished then. I don't know. Weird conflict of interest, I think. And then finally, my second question was on 420 in the Irvin. There is a prediction that the institutional church and the papacy would lose much of their power because they didn't see the need for them in the future. They were talking about how monasteries were going to gain power, and that's where the power needed to be. And I just wondered, it didn't say what the reaction of the papacy was to those comments or church leaders, and so I wonder if they had any thoughts or reactions to this, or if they just kind of let it go by the wayside and didn't pay it much attention. So I hope you all had a good week, and I will see you Monday.